Hello and welcome to Cemetery Stories Capital Connections Edition, Season 2. I'm your host, Capital Eric, and I'm a tour guide here at Sacramento Historic City Cemetery, as well as the California State Capitol Museum, a unit of California State Parks, just up the road. And I'd like to tell you today about one of our permanent residents here at the City Cemetery, someone who was connected in life or in death with the state capitol. Let's go. Don't be scared.
In today's episode, I'm going to tell you just a little about a number of various state officials interred here in the state plot in Historic City Cemetery, plus a bonus story at the end. Royal T. Sprague. Born in Vermont, he came to California in 1849 to mine and opened a business. In 1851, he was elected to the state senate, and in 1853, he served as president pro tem of that body. In 1867, he was elected to the Supreme Court of California, and in 1872 became the Chief Justice, a position which he occupied at the time of his death in February of 1872 at the age of 58. E.B. Price. A native of Alabama, he came to California in 1877 and served as an assemblyman and then was elected state controller. When he died in January of 1893, both houses adjourned for the day in respect for his death. Edwin G. Waite. During his time as Secretary of State, his office was responsible for the physical maintenance of the state capitol. Seeing that the Capitol had poor ventilation and believing that bad air conduces to bad legislation, he ordered the conversion from gas to electric lighting in 1892. He died in 1894 before the project was completed the next year. William Dana Perkins came to California in 1850. He became a tax collector for Placer County and served as sergeant-at-arms for the Assembly for 2 sessions. He then worked as a traveling land adjuster for the Central Pacific Railroad. When he died in 1896, he was serving his second term as state librarian. A proclamation was issued that on October 20th, 1896, all state offices were to be closed and all state officials and employees were to attend the funeral services as one body and wear memorial badges. Levi Ratcliffe. A native of Maine, he came to California in 1866. He was state treasurer, and he was described as a man whose conscience would not permit him to shirk a duty. And even though he was in poor health, he still went to his office in the Capitol daily. Barnabas Collins. He came to California in 1880 and opened a law office. He was elected to the Assembly in 1895 and appointed to several committees while in that position. While at his desk, he became ill. Pneumonia developed so quickly that medical aid was unsuccessful, and he passed away to the shock of his friends and fellow legislators. His funeral was held in the Assembly chambers. Gustav Henry Douglas. A native of New York, he was elected to the State Assembly in 1922. On March 27, 1923, he left the Capitol and walked to the Nevy drugstore at 10th and K. He asked for a glass of warm water and soda. After a few minutes passed, he slumped to the floor, having died of a heart attack. In the interest of keeping my job, I want to preface this next cemetery story by saying that this event happened almost 130 years ago, and the parties involved are all long since dead. The following is an excerpt from an article that ran in the March 9, 1891 edition of the Sacramento Bee. Despoiling graves, desecration of our city of the dead. The Bee from time to time has been compelled to report acts of vandalism in the city cemetery. It was almost inconceivable that men and women could be found in a city so fair as this who would descend to such acts. The information now at hand, however, not only removes all doubt on the point, but throws the guilt on parties whose position in life would be taken ordinarily as a complete refutation of such charges. The other day, parties drove out in a buggy and despoiled several graves of flowers that had been newly laid thereon. It was claimed that one of the vehicles was driven by a member of the present assembly.
Well, that's been another episode of Cemetery Stories Capital Connections Edition, Season 2. I'm your host, Capital Eric, and it's been my pleasure telling you a little bit about the cemetery as well as the state capitol. Now, unfortunately, during the pandemic, the California State Capitol Museum, a unit of California State Parks, is closed to the public. However, the cemetery remains open for a solitary stroll or some quiet contemplation. Keep up the social distancing, wash your hands, because it is better to be 6 feet apart than 6 feet under. Thank you very much for watching. Goodbye.